In case you were wondering, yes, this is the new Lily Sona design. I was originally gonna make a video explaining the change, but TLDR, I just wasn't connecting with the original design anymore. This one feels a lot more like me. Anyway, let's talk about video games. As I mentioned in a couple videos before, I'm a big fan of Resident Evil. I talked about the original Resident Evil 4 back in January, and I followed it up by talking about the remake. So it should be easy to guess what my reaction was when I saw that trailer at Summer Games Fest. Man, this broadcast's fucking boring. I'm just gonna zone out and draw. So yeah, time for some more Resident Evil content. And what better game to cover than the original 1996 classic? And by that I mean the remake released in 2002. Look man, I think the original was great, but come on. For a bit of background, the original Resident Evil released way back in 1996, and it was great. Directed by Shinji Mikami, RE1 was originally conceived as a remake of Capcom's old horror RPG, Sweet Home. It went through plenty of revisions before ultimately becoming the classic we know and love. It was a pioneer in the survival horror genre, and without it, we wouldn't have stuff like Silent Hill, The Last of Us, Doom 3, or even the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. Oh no, how will the middle schoolers get their fill of poorly optimized slop now? The point is, Resident Evil 1 is one of the most influential games of all time, and in 2002 we were blessed with a remake with tons of quality of life improvements, changes to the story and locations, and a more grounded tone. Much like Resident Evil 4, it was a GameCube exclusive before Capcom threw their exclusivity deal in the trash and ported it to pretty much anywhere they could. For this video, I'm looking at the PC version, and of course I modded it to have PlayStation glyphs. So here we are at the difficulty select screen. They ask us how we like to play our games, taking a walk, which is super easy, going on a hike, which is easy, and climbing a mountain, which is normal. Honestly, me and my friends think they made normal mode too hard, so I'll just be playing on hiking difficulty, which is easy mode, but functions like a normal mode. But hey, I don't think anyone watching is gonna have a problem with it because I can play video games any way I want, right, Sonic fans? I picked Jill because I'd have to be an idiot to play as Chris in this game. He only has 6 item slots as opposed to Jill's 8, and overall I just don't care for him in this game. Also, Jill is insanely pretty in this game, but that's not important. The game opens up with a well-animated CGI cutscene to set the mood. It's a shame they didn't make another live-action one like the original, but what are you gonna do? Resident Evil is essentially a cheesy, low-budget horror movie, and the premise is definitely your typical horror movie stuff. A group of Special Tactics and Rescue Service members, or STARS for short, consisting of Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Chris Redfield, Albert Wesker, and others that don't really matter because their only purpose is to get killed off, are heading over to the Arcalay Mountains to investigate the disappearance of STARS' Bravo team, who were originally sent to the fictional mountain region to investigate some strange murder cases. Holy shit, look at this body cam footage, it's in first person! They predicted RE7 15 years early! The team get ambushed by zombie dogs, so they rush over to the nearby Spencer mansion, separating from Chris. They decide to split up and find an escape route. Barry and Jill find out the mansion is infested with zombies, and Barry gives Jill a lockpick, though unfortunately they remove the Master of Unlocking line, so this game fucking sucks 0 out of 10. As much as I had fun discussing RE4, I'm glad I can finally talk about something a little more traditional for this franchise. This is Resident Evil in its purest form, a spooky scavenger hunt for keys and puzzle materials, all while being wary of the evil that roams this residence. It really makes you feel like a kid in a candy store, and by a candy store I mean an abandoned mansion full of monsters, and by kid I mean the sexiest woman alive. The main means of travel is none other than the good old-fashioned tank controls. A lot of people aren't very fond of this control scheme, and to be fair, I used to be one of those people, but they really grown on me. At the end of the day, no matter what, pressing up will move you forward, which works best for a game with fixed camera angles. You can also aim and shoot with the shoulder buttons, and this game has some pretty decent weapon variety. You start off with the pistol, and later on we get heavy hitters like the shotgun, magnum, and grenade launcher. But of course, resource management is crucial to this game, so shoot zombies if it's the only option you have at the moment. Resource management is where RE's dread comes from. It makes you feel pretty powerless against these monsters, so you have to really think how to evade a zombie or whether or not you should pick up a nearby item. My ideal loadout is 2 slots taken by the pistol and its ammo, a heavier item like the shotgun or grenade launcher, at least 1 healing item, and then the rest can be used for anything. Speaking of, there's also the herb system. This is pretty common knowledge to all Resident Evil fans out there, but I'll just say it anyway. Green herbs are how we replenish health, and combining them with blue or red will cure poison or completely heal you, respectively. Also, thank God we now have a dedicated map button. In the original game, the map was only within the item menu, which was a hassle to open frequently. Thankfully, it's not the case here, and I couldn't be happier. Speaking of quality of life improvements, pressing square and down makes Jill do a quick turn, and we now have full control on stairs, unlike the original where they basically acted like doors. And we now have defensive items in the form of daggers found throughout the game, and a taser if we have battery packs. This is such a great addition since now we have a chance to fight back if we're grabbed, rather than helplessly satisfying a zombie's hunger for Jill sandwiches. Because I know I want one. Combine the smooth controls with this game's world and you get a perfect survival horror experience. Like I mentioned before, Jill has a lockpick, so I tried to open any door I came across regardless if the map said it was locked or not. And lo and behold, some doors were lockpickable to advance forward. Some objects house hidden secrets, so inspecting them in the menu is how we can find out what their deal is. Like this part where you find the Book of Curses, just turn it around and bam, we now have the sword key. Occasionally you'll find safe rooms that hold item boxes where we can store unneeded items, and the iconic typewriter where we can save our progress. Saving is tied to ink ribbons found throughout the game, so you need to strategize when to save and how much to do so, because if you run out of ink ribbons, you're fucked. These rooms are an opportunity to take a breather, maybe reload your guns and save the game before heading back to the halls. And of course, there's no Resident Evil safe room without soothing music. Now, as for the mansion itself, it's one of my favorite locations in the series, especially in this remake. It's amazing how good it looks 23 years later. Much like the original game, the backgrounds are just pre-rendered images, but that limitation allows for some really pretty environments. The dark, run-down, washed-out rooms and corridors combined with the spooky ambience make for some stellar art direction, especially in the dining room with that grandfather clock ticking away, the newly added graveyard outside, that spooky art room where we find the first floor map, etc. The original game's mansion felt a little more like it was recently abandoned, but this remake goes for something entirely different, and it's a lot better in my opinion. The sound design also services the vibe, most notably from the zombies. I'm a big fan of their squishy footsteps and their moan and cry. It makes the zombies feel a little sad instead of generically angry like the RE Engine remakes, and I kinda dig it. And that's not to mention the amount of files that flesh out the mansion, detailing how this once habitable estate fell into ruin. They allude to the mansion's owner, Mr. Spencer, and how he's a pretty shitty dude. There's some files written by unfortunate victims of the zombie infection, most notably the iconic Itchy Tasty doc. And some allude to the tragedy of a little girl named Lisa, which we'll get to much later in the video, but the point is the details and environmental storytelling here is insane. The main character for any Resident Evil game isn't the characters themselves, it's the location. It's always the most fleshed out thing, and it's all lovingly crafted to perfection. One thing I'd change about this game is the door cutscenes. They play every single time you open a door, and it kinda sucks. This is something the original does better in my opinion, at least the GOG PC port, since you're allowed to skip them there. But I guess it's not the worst thing in the world since they gave me plenty of time to jot down notes mid-playthrough. And while we're shitting on this game, let me just say some visuals haven't aged the best, but that's to be expected when you port a 20-year-old game to modern consoles. That's really just a minor, noticeable thing. I think overall, the game still looks fucking incredible. As for puzzles, there's the sword key within the Book of Curses like I mentioned before, and the shotgun room. Here you're supposed to pull the old switcheroo with this shotgun on the wall, replacing it with the broken shotgun. There's a couple more puzzles that make you pull the old switcheroo on more more stuff, and they're simple yet effective. But here it's just simpler to take the shotgun so Barry can save you from the booby-trapped ceiling. If not, you don't get to hear this line.
That was a close one. A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Hey, this bathtub's been full for God knows how long. We can't have that. That's how we get mold. Jill, please train this bathtub. So overdramatic. Another cool puzzle here is the dog whistle one. We find a dog whistle in this random room, and attached to it is a photograph of the west balcony. Going over there and blowing the whistle summons a special Cerberus, and after we kill him, we take the collar to acquire the imitation key, which we need to use on this death trap to get the armor key. There's also the... God, the Crimson Heads fucking suck. Newly added to the remake, the Crimson Heads show up if you kill a zombie without burning the body or blowing its head off. This means that if you want to kill zombies, you either better have your shotgun or the lighter or kerosene. Honestly, for the most part, whenever I killed a zombie, I just burnt a couple of corpses here and there, but I didn't mind getting chased around by the Crimson Heads as long as I mapped out my escape route and bolted to the exit. They really weren't that big of an obstacle, but canonically, I like them. Visually, they look like a missing link between zombies and RE2's Lickers, which is pretty neat in my opinion. Anyway, the main goal of the mansion area is to hunt down 4 death masks to place in the crypt under the graveyard. The first one was pretty easy to find. I just went into the night room and floundered around a bit trying to push them in the correct order to prevent the room from flooding with toxic gas. One flick of a switch later and I got the jewelry box, and tinkering around with it unlocks the first mask. The next one is in this greenhouse, and I remember seeing a herbicide chemical on the east side of the mansion, so one trip later I got it and placed it here. I'm glad I turned the dial the right direction this time, since in my original playthrough I accidentally killed these green herbs, but whatever, at least we got the mask now. The next one is in this room where we gotta flip switches on these stained glass portraits to correspond with the bigger one at the end of the hallway. This is actually one of the few things I thought was a downgrade from the original. In that game you had to put the portraits in order from newborn baby to old man, and it was slightly more engaging, you know? But here you just gotta make the colors the same as the other picture. It can be done in like 3 seconds. Kind of a bummer. But once that's done, we get the third mask and we unlock a shortcut to the graveyard, which means I didn't have to backtrack, so that was cool at least. And the last one... Oh boy, this one's a doozy. A while ago, Jill bumped into fellow STARS member Richard. His arm is all torn up because he gooned too hard, but he lies to Jill telling her a big snake did this to him because he doesn't want to come off as a degenerate freak like me. Now we have to do a side quest where we walk from the 2nd floor east attic all the way down to the 1st floor west safe room to deliver the antidote. Much later on, we unlock this bar with a piano, and combining the sheet music found here with a page found earlier lets Jill play some sick tunes. Beethoven's been real quiet since this one dropped. Wait, who wrote this song? After that, we place the gold emblem in the dining room, so now we can do a puzzle on this grandfather clock. Now we get the shield key, which is only used for the big snake boss fight, and our good friend Richard joins in to help on the fight. Oh god, don't worry, now we have the assault shotgun. It's more powerful than the normal one, and it has a higher ammo capacity, so even if the snake had a healthy helping of dick, we could deliver the finishing blow. Or not. Since Jill's now poisoned, I had to go back to the west safe room for the antidote again, but not before grabbing the final mask. So once we're cured, we can make our way back to the crypt to unlock the next area, the residence. And as you can imagine, it do be pretty evil. This area is relatively short compared to the mansion, but it's still pretty good. Up to this point, the game's been pretty light on story, but here Jill eavesdrops on a conversation with Barry, showing that he may be in cahoots with someone plotting to destroy stars. Of course, the conversation ends soon after, but for now, Jill is a little skeptical of Barry. This is like the most obvious thing ever, right? Barry doesn't seem like a bad guy, he's just a tired old man. And also, while I'm at it, I should probably bring up the cutscene presentation. Well, it's better than the original in a technical sense. The voice acting's pretty good, but it can feel a little wooden sometimes. The same thing goes with the facial animation. But hey, I'm not docking points for that, since as competent as the narrative is, no one's really playing this game for the story. Anyway, the Residence of course introduces the wasp enemies, and it throws in some giant spiders for good measure. You can easily avoid both of them by running past them. And there's a ladder that leads down to the Aqua Ring with these massive mutated sharks nicknamed Neptune. By this point, it should be apparent that the Spencer Mansion was merely the exterior of a massive underground laboratory. Whatever they did down here resulted in an outbreak, and all the zombies we encountered on our journey were scientists working for Mr. Spencer. All the animals in the area got infected too, turning them into the hostile beasts we see in the game. The sharks here are pretty annoying during the first hallway, and this one especially gets stressful during the dreaded pressure threshold puzzle. For the life of me, I have no idea how someone would be able to do this without looking up a guide. You need to flip switches in a specific order to lower the safety doors, all while this shark tries to bash through the window. And failing the puzzle will insta-kill you. I'm all for puzzles that make you think, but this one's a little too cryptic for my taste. I didn't feel accomplished when I beat it. I felt relieved that the shark didn't fucking kill me. But hey, the rest of the Aqua Ring is pretty neat, and the sharks aren't a threat once the water is drained. We can even get revenge on this big one by electrocuting it. Once we get the gallery key, the rest of the residence is a walk in the park. There's a couple cool puzzles here, like spraying insecticide in the hole in the wall to kill a beehive on the other side, and the optional Plant 42 puzzles. There's plenty of files foreshadowing the boss at the end of this area, Plant 42, an experiment with the T-virus gone wrong. We can either fight it like normal or go into the spider room to light up colored lanterns and memorize numbers on the upstairs pool table, open the medical room, and mix around chemicals to create V-Jolt, which will insta-kill Plant 42 once we pour it on its roots in the Aqua Ring. It was pretty accomplishing to pull off, and after the stressful shark puzzle from earlier, the V-Jolt one is very welcome. Before leaving the residence, we get the helmet key, which means we can open more doors in the mansion. But first, we have a short cutscene with Wesker. They try to do this little bait and switch where Wesker notes that Barry's been acting a little weird, but man, maybe it's because I know the twist, but it's super obvious, right?
Wesker!
Jill, so you're safe.
That's what I was going to say.
I apologize. It was all I could do to protect myself against those strange creatures.
I understand. Anyway, it's good that you're safe.
Did you notice? Barry, he sounded a little flaky.
Now that you mention it, yeah. I'll keep a close eye.
Maybe it's quite natural under these circumstances. It's not really our standard operation.
Also, I can see his eyes through his sunglasses, and I don't like that. Anyway, back to the mansion. The way this differs from our first time here is that they— oh my god! Phew, that was a close one. Who's the hunter now? That's something Leon would say. So yeah, these are the hunters, a combination of the T-virus with human and amphibian DNA. They're faster and stronger than zombies, being able to hop around like frogs and swiping at you with their claws. Thankfully, they only go down in a couple of hits from the shotgun or grenade launcher, but Jesus, they definitely add to the tension. I normally tried to kill as many as I could when they were in the same room as me. And speaking of rooms, now I had access to the trophy room, so by sneaking under the eagle cameras, I got the red and yellow Chaos Emeralds, with the yellow one being used on this tiger. The blue gem I did way earlier, and I didn't really mention it because it was just shotgun ammo, I think, but the yellow one gave me the MO disc, which we'll store in the item box for now. The last thing to note of this room is the document on the coffee table going over the secret plot to lure the remaining STARS members into the mansion and test bioweapons against them, most notably from the Tyrant. The whole mansion is also rigged to blow up afterwards, and this was all planned by none other than the Umbrella Corporation. I don't know if they ever mentioned Umbrella is supposed to be a pharmaceutical company prior to this, but now we know that the Aqua Ring as well as all the ghouls within the walls are all products of Umbrella. Now back to the game, the red gem is used on a puzzle to get the first Spencer crest, which will be used later. Going into the art room, there's a secret passageway leading down to the basement, and I'm really glad this isn't using the director's cut music. What a funny and original joke, ladies and gentlemen. There's also the— ah, fuck. Yep, I've been poisoned. If I don't find a blue herb ASAP, I'm as good as dead. I mean, if they place spiders here, they must have put some nearby. Ha! Just as I thought. Now, time to... So my next move was to try and turn the power back on. So my next move was to try and turn the power back on so I could take the elevator to the second floor. My health was slowly dropping and this whole thing was probably the scariest part of my playthrough, and it's entirely my fault. To rub salt on the wounds, this hallway gave me a lovely gift in the form of 2 zombies to fight and herbs I couldn't pick up. And after a long and strenuous journey, I made it back to the west item box and took more serum to cure my... I can't pick up more serum. Thankfully, I had a couple first aid sprays in my item box, so I bought myself more time, made some room in my inventory, and ran back to retrieve the blue herb. That'll teach me to fill up my 8 slots with unneeded puzzle materials. I can even exact my revenge on that fucking spider I hate. The next few rooms should be a walk in the park, so long as there's no enemies that can poison me. Now, I'd like to tell you all that this fight was easy, but, I'd be lying. I lost half an hour of progress. The next area is the underground cavern behind the waterfall. Immediately upon entering, we get a small cutscene where Jill reunites with fellow STARS member Enrico.
The stars are finished. Someone is a traitor. Umbrella set us up.
It didn't last very long. This area is another smaller one, but there's some standout moments like the Indiana Jones style boulder chases, which are the only times I wish I was playing as Chris, the hexagon crank turnable hallways, and this room where we have another boss to fight, but this time against a couple of massive spiders. These guys can be pretty tough, so you have to... Nope, no, not again. That wasn't nearly as stressful as last time. I should probably save before heading back out there. So as I was saying, this boss can be a pretty tough one since it has some pretty powerful attacks, and... Well, I guess I made a good decision using the typewriter beforehand, huh? Okay, maybe there's still some green herbs upstairs that'll help me. Just as I thought. Wait, what's that? There's no way. Oh my god, I'm going to kill myself. The last puzzle has us combine the elevator key with the stone ring and rotating it to see the numbers needed to activate the power. And once the elevator comes, so does Barry. I didn't mean it like that.
Barry!
Oh, never mind, he's gone. So now we're in Lisa's room for a brief moment, and here she is. Lisa. Honestly, I couldn't really come up with a way to talk about her without bringing up her insane lore, so I was saving that until the last encounter with her, which is pretty soon. She's been present throughout the game as an occasional, slow, unwinnable boss fight who's pretty easy to avoid. She turns this otherwise pretty barren passageway into a pretty engaging scramble to solve a puzzle, and soon after we go into her room and get the final puzzle piece needed to open the ominous door in the main hall. After Jill confronts Barry about why he left her to die, Lisa shows up to throw down, and we have a choice to either trust Barry and return his gun, or leave him defenseless. On one hand, we get his magnum, but on the other hand, it prevents us from getting the best ending. Yeah, I pretty much say yes with no hesitation. So here we are at Lisa's boss fight, so it's time to go over what her deal is. Like I said way earlier, flavor text scattered throughout the game tells a tragic story of the Trevor family. George Trevor knew all the secrets of the mansion, so if he were to, I don't know, get executed by Umbrella staff, the only person who'd know would be Oswell Spencer himself. George knew this, so when the time came, he fled through the various booby traps and hidden passageways, eventually dying of starvation. Jessica and Lisa Trevor were invited to stay at the mansion around the same time, and they were kidnapped to become unwilling guinea pigs to test out the progenitor virus, which was the basis of the T virus as well as Resident Evil 2's G virus. Jessica was disposed of, but Lisa was kept under further observation as her mind deteriorated as more time went on. When an Umbrella staff member posed as her mother, she became violent and forcefully cut off her face, starting this creepy obsession with trying to find her mother's face to return to her when they meet again, resulting in her stitched together mask of faces. 50 years later, she's now a tragic shell of what she once was. A little girl just trying to find her mother. After all the physical and mental mutilation she's been through, it just makes you despise the Umbrella Corporation even more. And now, during the final boss fight against her, we don't really fight her. We push 4 stones off the platform to open a coffin in the center of the room. Once Lisa's story is concluded, we can inspect the coffin of Jessica Trevor, and there's a letter to Lisa going over a desperate plan of escape written as Jessica was losing her mind. A plan that, unfortunately, ended in tragedy. Overall, Lisa was a fantastic addition to the remake. Her story definitely strengthens the overall picture, and it's just really depressing. I know I said earlier that people don't play this game for the story, but what I meant by that was the immediate story. Because on the surface, these guys just stumble into the mansion and need to escape. It's pretty simple. But as you look deeper, you'll see how the Umbrella Corporation left this innocent family in ruin, and it makes you all the more determined to take that elevator ride down to the secret underground laboratory to save the day, and it's easily the worst part in the whole game. Yeah, it's just Resident Evil tradition that the final area is the worst part of the game, which is pretty unfortunate. The end game is where all the magic just seems to stop, so it's not as impressive anymore. We're just going through the motions and waiting for the game to end at this point. But personally, some final areas are better than others. Like, I didn't think the island in RE4 was bad. It was pretty fun. It was slightly better in the remake, but I'll take both over the RE7 boat segment. But as for the secret Umbrella Labs from the first game, it's alright, I guess. To give it some credit, I think it opens up pretty decently. There's some interesting puzzles like reading the letter from John talking to Ada. Yes, that Ada. And those two end up being the username and password for the computer used to unlock a couple doors. There's also the X-ray one that gives you another password, the slideshow that gives you another key. Wait, is that Wesker? And here's where we can finally use the 3 MO discs found throughout the game. They unlock a hallway with a prison cell at the end containing Chris Redpilled.
Jill?
Chris, you're alive!
Of course I'm alive. Jill, there's something big going down, and I don't think we're part of the equation.
I tell you, the urge to leave him in this cell to rot is strong, but I really want the good ending, so we'll just have to come back to him later. Also, for clarification, I don't actually hate Chris Redfield, I just think shitting on him is funny. Now, as for the second half of this lab, here's where things really go to shit. We're introduced to the Chimeras, which are the same deal as the Hunters, except more annoying. They're a combination of human and insect DNA, as well as the T-virus, and they also hop around and try to claw at you. At least the Hunters were in the mansion, but here I'm in this steamy, claustrophobic red hallway fighting for my life with limited ammo. And here's the fucker! I meant to type "here's the kicker" in the script, but I thought that was funny, so I'm keeping it. Once we get the empty fuel supply capsule, we mosey over to the X-ray room to fill it with an incredibly fragile fuel source, so you need to walk. I repeat, walk all the way to the elevator on the other side. The game only tells you to not run, but what they don't tell you is that taking too much damage or even shooting your weapon will make the fuel explode. So, after trying again, I managed to successfully activate the elevator, so Barry shows up again and we make it to the deepest depths of the laboratory.
Wesker!
Thank you, Barry.
Holy shit, Wesker's the bad guy? Of course, Wesker reveals he blackmailed Barry to do his bidding so his family won't be murdered, and I think that's pretty neat. It kind of makes you feel a little bad for Barry, and Wesker really gets to shine here now that he shows his true colors as an undercover Umbrella agent. Peter Jessup's performance is just so slimy and, in Jill's words, pathetic.
You gotta love Barry. He must really be afraid of Umbrella.
You and Umbrella took his family, you bastard. Oh!
Umbrella? Well, I used some carrots and sticks to cow him. but it had nothing to do with Umbrella.
And while they reveal Wesker was working for the Umbrella Corporation the whole time, we see Umbrella's ultimate creation, the bioweapon to end all bioweapons, the Tyrant. All the tragedy that befell the staff, the dogs, the sharks, the Trevors, they were all practiced to create the ultimate super soldier. It's over 8 feet tall, has an exposed heart, and a large claw for a right arm. And after Barry redeems himself and shoots Wesker, it breaches containment and we start the final boss against it.
Damn it!
Jill and Barry together. In hell.
I've had a harder time dealing with Crimson Heads. You just kind of run into a circle and occasionally turn back to shoot him with a powerful weapon of your choice. For the so-called ultimate life form, he doesn't take too kindly to acid rounds. As far as Resident Evil escape sequences go, this one is probably my favorite, rivaled only by Resident Evil 2 remakes. The blaring sirens, the red lights going off, the announcer going,
Self-destruct system has been activated. All personnel must evacuate. Deactivating and releasing all logs.
I fucking love it. It's so tense and it really feels like the whole facility could blow up at any moment. Of course, the countdown doesn't start until we activate the next elevator, but it still makes me feel on edge. Now that all the locks are, well, unlocked, we can go back to the prison cell and rescue Chris, so now it's a scramble to the final elevator. We only have 3 minutes remaining and we have to signal to Brad that we're ready to be rescued. Oh yeah, after we cure Richard, he gives us the radio and Brad is trying to contact us periodically throughout the game. Oops. Once we're at the heliport, we use the signal rockets and await Brad's arrival. Man, come on! Don't worry guys, the first round was a cakewalk, so this should be no sweat. My controller died. And of course, as per Resident Evil tradition, Brad throws us a rocket launcher to deliver the finishing blow. As the Spencer Mansion erupts before our eyes, our heroes ride off into the sunrise. A new dawn is here, and the nightmare is over. Credits roll. Now, this song is okay, but it's no Still Dawn. And that was Resident Evil Remake. I feel like every now and then I flip-flop between this game and RE4 Remake when someone asks me what my favorite Resident Evil game is. But obviously this game is more in line with what the series is known for, a tense romp through a spooky location while solving puzzles and evading creepy zombies. Like I said earlier, it made me feel like a kid in a candy store just running around and trying to do things as fast as possible. Of course, some puzzles aren't that fun to do, but the good very much overshadows the bad. The presentation was also top-notch with some of the best ambience in the series, and it doesn't slacken the graphical aspect either, despite some muddy textures being noticeable on modern hardware. The new story additions are also amazing. The character models are amazing, the controls are amazing. You get the idea. Resident Evil is amazing. It's available on all modern consoles, and if you don't get accustomed to tank controls, there's an option to turn it off, so you really have no excuse to enter the world of survival horror. And while this video was about the remake, I do recommend you play the original game whenever you can, either by emulating it or the GOG port, which is a pretty good port in my opinion. And with that, thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notif bell, follow me on Newgrounds or Blue Sky to keep up with my other stuff. You can also become a channel member or patron to see videos early, as well as getting to see your name on the end screen. Thanks again for all the support, and I'll see you all next time! Holy shit, Jill looks so hot in the Resident Evil 3 outfit.